博士呢，在美国的经历啊，那蔡博士从2010年呢就加入美国的国务院，然后呢也担任过最近一次是担任乔治亚呢提比里斯大使馆的这一个文化官。那之前呢也曾经在华盛顿特区的紧急应变中心呢担任这一个监督呢跟危机处理官哈。那也曾经呢是美国呢驻菲律宾的马尼拉的大使，好，那也曾经驻这一个北京的大使，所以经历呢是非常的完整跟丰富哈。那当然呢，让我最钦佩的呢除了呢我们蔡博士的话呢，我们说呢他本身呢是在历史跟宗教方面是专家哈。他本身最后呢是在斯坦福大学呢修得这一个宗教的博士学位。可是我想呢，有一点呢也是希望呢我们各位同学呢也能够。等一下从蔡博士的这一个演讲当中细细的去体会的，就是蔡博士的话呢，他能够我们说呢通晓呢很多种的语言。那我在这里看到的呢，当然除了这一个英文，那华语也是非常流利的。好像校长跟蔡博士，我还是只能用华语对话哦。那还有台语，还有德语、乔治亚语、法语，还有塔加祿语，还有日文。这么多种语言哈，那我想我们今天呢，我们在推双语教育的时候呢，我今天特别还跟我们学校的老师说呢，多学一种语言呢，多学各种语言的话呢，会有一个好处。像校长就很关心我会不会老人痴呆，他说学更多的语言呢，可以延缓我们老人痴呆的时间哈，所以这个还蛮重要的，而且开车的技术也会比较好一点哈。那这次的去年呢我们的 Fulbright 的执行长呢 Dr. Nado 呢到我们学校来的时候，特别也跟我们同学呢在分享的一些我们说推动双语教育的一些经验。那今天的话呢，各位同学的话呢，就可以从我们蔡博士的演讲当中呢，更细细的去体验呢，一位呢经历过这么多国家的工作经验，然后通晓这么多国种语言的这样子的一个专业的人士、专家呢、学者呢，也是我们 AIT 很重要的官员呢，那他是怎么在看未来的？我们到底呢，我们要怎么去准备我们的未来？这个是相当难得的一场演讲。那请各位同学，我们用掌声，我们来欢迎蔡博士。OK。
Okay, so everything in English, right? I heard that your English is the best in the whole school. So, no, I'm sure it is. Okay, so good afternoon. It's wonderful to meet you. Could I first ask your names? If I just tell me your name in English if you can. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just pass it and tell me your name. Yeah.
My name is Lauren.
Zoe?
Lauren.
Lauren? Okay, thank you.
My name is Maggie. Maggie.
Mandy?
Maggie.
Maggie, I'm sorry. Okay.
My name is Jessie.
Jessie?
Yeah. My name is Sophie.
Sophie.
My name is Olga.
Olga? Wonderful.
My name is Gloria.
Gloria.
My name is Cindy.
Cindy? Okay, and then your neighbor?
My name is Shara.
Cheryl. Now let's get the front row. Yeah.
My name is Claire.
Claire?
My name is Doreen. Doreen, D-O-R-E-E-N.
Doreen?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Nana. Nana.
Nana.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I think the last row.
My name is Eden.
Elaine. Thank you.
My name is Ian.
Ian? How do you spell that?
I-A-N-N-E.
I-A?
N-N-E.
I-E-E.
Oh, Ian. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Bonnie.
Bonnie?
My name is Nana.
Bonnie.
Nana.
Nana.
Yeah.
My name is Mia.
And then I think the last How do you spell it?
M-I-A.
Mia?
Yes. My name
Okay.
is Eden.
My name is Candy.
Eden.
Elaine. Kathy? Thank you.
My name is Peg.
My name is Ian.
P-E-G-G-Y.
Ian?
Peggy.
Ian.
How do you spell that?
Peggy.
Peggy.
I-A-N-N-E.
Thank you. Okay.
N-N-E.
Great. Ian. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
I'm Bonnie.
My
Bonnie?
name is Nana.
Bonnie.
Nana.
Nana.
Okay.
My name is Mia.
And then I think the How do you spell it?
M-I-A.
那个 Mia?
My name
Okay.
is Eden.
My name is Candy.
Elaine.
My name is Peg.
My name is Ian.
P-E-G-G-Y.
Ian? Okay, thank you for
Peg.
thank you for telling me your names. Hopefully, with this, I'll remember them. But I think it's important to know each other's names.
Bonnie.
My name is Julius, Julius. It's
My name
a
is Mia.
Latin name. How do you spell it? Maybe you heard of Julius Caesar. He was a Roman emperor.
My name is
Anyway,
Candy.
there was a very famous basketball in the U.S. called Julius Irving. So,
My name is Ian.
P-E-G-G-Y.
okay, thank you for telling me your names. Hopefully, with this, I'll remember them. But I think it's important to know each other's names.
Bonnie.
My name is Julius, Julius. It's a Latin name. Maybe you heard of Julius Caesar. He was a Roman emperor.
My name is
Anyway, there was a very famous basketball in the U.S. called Julius Irving. So,
My name is Ian.
P-E-G-G-Y.
okay. Thank you for. I have a PowerPoint, telling me and your then we'll names. start Hopefully, as soon as it comes.
With this, I'll remember them. But I think it's important to.
I feel like I
know
should
each
be
other's
sitting
names.
down with you.
My name is Julius, Julius. It's a Latin name. Maybe you heard of Julius Caesar. He was a Roman emperor.
My name is
Anyway, there was a very famous basketball in the U.S. called Julius Irving. So,
My name is Ian.
P-E-G-G-Y.
okay. Thank you for. I
think
have
they-
a PowerPoint
here
telling me your
ourselves.
names.
We'll start
Hopefully,
as soon as it comes.
with this, I'll remember them. But I think it's important
I
to.
feel like I
know
should
each
be
other's
sitting
names.
down with you.
My name is Julius, Julius. It's a Latin name. Maybe you heard of Julius Caesar. He was a Roman emperor.
My name is
Anyway, there was a very famous basketball in the U.S. called Julius Irving. So,
My name is Ian. P-E-G-G-Y.
okay. Thank you for. I
think
have
they-
a PowerPoint here
telling me your
ourselves, and
names.
we'll start
Hopefully,
as soon as it comes. With this, I'll remember them. But I think it's important to.
I feel like I
know
should
each
be
other's
sitting
names.
down with you.
My name is Julius, Julius. It's a Latin name. Maybe you heard of Julius Caesar. He was a Roman emperor.
my name is
Anyway, there was a very famous basketball in the U.S. called Julius Irving. So,
My name is Ian. P-E-G-G-Y.
okay. Thank you for. I
think
have
they-
a PowerPoint here. OK， 好，下面这个 OK。
这是上，这是下，
上跟下，你说
下一页，
下一页，前一页是这个。OK， 好，谢谢。
Okay, so let's begin. Thank you again for sharing your time with me this afternoon. It's a real honor to come to this school. I've lived in Kaohsiung for about 1 year, but I've known about your school for a few years now. I don't know if you know this, but my parents are from Taiwan. So my mother is from Taichung. She went to Taichung女中. And my mom's sister was a teacher, a student and a teacher at Taichung女中. So I know that in Taiwan, the girls' high schools are very excellent. So and your principal, thank you as well for Principal Lin for this invitation. Your principal said that you have to score very high to get into this school, and then you took another test to get into this class. So I think all of you must be very, very exceptional. Very, very special students. I'm a father of 2 daughters as well. One daughter right now is 17 years old. She is a senior in high school. And one daughter is 14. She is, I think, 1 year younger than you. She is in 9th grade. So like Guosan and then Gaosan. My kids go to the Kaohsiung American School. But they also know some Chinese. So I also want to say hi to everyone who's watching. I know other students at the school are watching. Hopefully you can hear me clearly. If there's anything that I'm saying that is not clear, please feel free to raise your hand. let me know if I can repeat something, okay? So today I'd like to talk with you about 3 kinds of things. I'll introduce a little bit of AIT to you, what we do, what my job is. My colleague Emily is also here today. I'll introduce her when she comes back. But the kind of work that we do. I also want to talk to you about colleges and universities in the U.S., kind of higher education in the U.S., and what you can do even now. Now you're in the first year of high school, right? But what you can start doing now to prepare yourself, not just for going to school in the U.S., but for going to school maybe in other countries as well. And then the third thing I want to talk about is future-oriented skills. So what kinds of skills will be helpful for you in the future, in your future jobs? No matter what you study, no matter what you go into, I think that there are some things that may be helpful for your future. Okay? Let me, sorry. So I'll introduce myself a little bit more. So I'm the Public Affairs Officer at AIT in Kaohsiung. In Taiwan, AIT has 2 offices. One is in Taipei, and one is in Kaohsiung. Taipei is a very large office. In Kaohsiung, we are a small team, but it's very important for the southern part of Taiwan. I was born in San Francisco. Have any of you been to the United States before? Yeah? Let me see if my chart works. Olga, right? Where did you go? Los Angeles? Okay, that's where I'm from. And this is Doreen? Doreen, where did you go? Okay. You lived there for 1 year? Oh, how? You're 2 years old. Okay. Do you remember anything from that year?
A little bit.
Oh, what do you remember?
Playing in a backyard with the leaves.
With what?
Leaves.
Leaves. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's like 4 seasons, right? And the fall, the leaves come down. Okay, no, that's great. So yeah, I grew up in California. San Francisco is in the north of California. And then when I was a child, we moved down to Los Angeles in the south. And then when I was in high school, I lived in England, in a city called Oxford. My father was at the university there. And then later we went to Heidelberg in Germany. There's also the oldest university is in Heidelberg. I'll talk about that in a minute. So when I was in high school, I had the chance to live in Europe. It was great. You could buy one train ticket that lets you go to 20-some countries. And I think when I was 15 or 16, I traveled around with my brother. Sometimes we sleep in the train station. Sometimes we slept in the trains. But it was a really wonderful time. One thing I really enjoyed, and I think this is also what you are doing, is that in Europe, from a very young age, people learn a lot of languages. So the class that I was in, we took French, we had to study German, we had to study Latin, all at the same time. And it's very common in Europe to study 2 or 3 or 4 foreign languages all at the same time. So I know your English is excellent. I also encourage you to study other languages as well. Other Asian languages, other European languages. How many of you study languages aside from English? What else are you studying? Any other languages? No time, right? But maybe later in college, because once you study one language, a second language, the third one is easier. The fourth one, the fifth one, the sixth, it's a little bit easier. Because I think that if you know at least 2 languages or 3, your mind is a little bit more flexible. And you see the world in a different way. It's not just one way. So hopefully you can study English very well, but also other languages you're interested in as well. Let's see. Okay, so as the principal said, these are some of the places I've worked as a US diplomat in China, in the Philippines. Thank you. I still feel bad, I'm still higher than you. Okay, but we change countries every 2 or 3 years. So I know in the Taiwan system, I have some friends who are diplomats for Taiwan. They usually will go out abroad for 6 years and then come back for 3 years. The US system is a little bit more flexible. We choose where we go next. So you can apply for jobs anywhere in the world, in Africa, Latin America, Europe, or Asia. And most of the time for us, it's what we would like for our children. So I have 2 daughters. They were very young when I started this job. They were 5 and 2 years old. So they have lived in all of these countries. Sometimes it's hard because you have friends that you make in each place. Before I was a diplomat for the United States, I was a professor in the university. So I taught history and religion, especially Asian religions like, you know what Taoism is? Taoism is like 道家, 道教. Buddhism, Confucianism. Confucianism is like 儒家, that kind of stuff. So I was a teacher before as well. My wife is a teacher. My wife is an elementary school teacher. Right now she teaches at the Kaohsiung American School. But every time we move to a different country, she has to change jobs. So I'm very grateful to her and to my kids for being willing to move around so much. So I went to, after high school in Germany and the UK, I went back to the US to study. So I went to a small college called Swarthmore College. It's in a town called Philadelphia. And then after college, I worked for 2 years in the California state government. I worked on environmental issues. And then I went back, I did a master's at Harvard and then a PhD at Stanford. So sometimes East Coast, sometimes West Coast, but because I love California so much, I always try to go back to California if I can, because the weather is nice and that's where I grew up. So I always try to go back. Okay. Let me say a few things about AIT. So AIT really is here because of the relationship between the US and Taiwan. There's a few aspects of the relationship. So the first is to promote the US-Taiwan security relationship. So this means in terms of defense, right? Taiwan's ability to defend itself, but also security also means things like cybersecurity, right? Defense against transnational crime and things like that. The second thing is to promote the US-Taiwan economic and commercial relationship. So Taiwan is one of the largest trading partners with the US in all kinds of things, like high tech, semiconductors, agricultural goods. There's all kinds of things that the US and Taiwan trade with each other. So it's very important to develop the economic relationship as well. Third is to promote Taiwan's role in the international community. Okay? We know that Taiwan has a very unique place in the world. Its diplomatic status is very unique. So as a friend of Taiwan, it's very important to the US to help Taiwan to be a leader in many areas. So even right now, all of us are sitting here during COVID-19, right? In most countries around the world, kids are not in school. In most countries around the world, people cannot go to work, right? And so this is one area where Taiwan is a real leader in how it is managing the pandemic, right? What other ways is Taiwan, in your understanding, what other ways does Taiwan lead in the world? What is something that Taiwan is very good at? Anyone? Yes, Gloria, right? Yeah, semiconductor. Taiwan is probably the number one, right? Maker of advanced semiconductors. And now we need semiconductors for what? What are semiconductors used in? Electronic products, anything. Cars, computers, right? So it's a very, very important product. What's another famous product or service from Taiwan? Yes. What that? Okay. You're, Nana? Okay. Yeah, boba milk tea. So sometimes a country can also lead in its culture. right? In its culture and its food. So yeah, I think more and more people around the world enjoy boba tea, bubble tea. It has many names around the world. Taiwan is very famous for its drinks. The drinks are very, very good, right? So, and here in Kaohsiung is a harbor, right? Because we're by the ocean. So one of the things, as an example, that we work on with Kaohsiung is also issues related to the ocean and the environment. Right now, a big challenge the world is facing is the world is getting hotter, right? And in the ocean as well, there's a lot of trash, debris, right? There's a lot of like plastics in the oceans and things like that. Sometimes when people drink bubble tea, they throw away the container. You drink it once, you throw it away. So this is more and more of an issue. So that's another example where actually Taiwan is doing a lot of interesting and good things to try and save the ocean and to take care of this problem of marine debris. Debris, do you know this word? D-E-B-R-I-S? It's like junk. Marine is anything to do with the ocean. Ocean trash, ocean garbage, you could call it. Okay. So another area is, whoops, sorry. Oh no. 可以回到那个 Okay, sorry about that. And then one other thing that we do in public diplomacy is also we tell people about opportunities to study in the US. There's a service that AIT has called Education USA, and it is sponsored by the US government, but it is a free counseling service. You can Google Education USA, but for example, in Kaohsiung, every month there's a counselor that comes and can give you advice if you're interested in maybe in 2 years' time, 1 or 2 years, when you start to look at colleges. If you're considering studying in the United States, AIT also has this service called Education USA. Okay, so those are some of the areas that we work in. Okay, I would like to ask you a question now. So this is my question. Many of you may one day study abroad, right? Share the first image or word that comes to mind when you think about US colleges and universities. So just, if each of you could just turn to your neighbor, turn to someone and just discuss this for like 2 minutes. It can be a group of 2 or a group of 3. What are your impressions of US colleges and universities? Okay, and if you can, try to do it all in English. That would be great. Okay, I know that was only like 1 minute, but let's hear from some of you. You can either say what you said or you can say what your neighbor said. Let me call on some people. How about Elaine? What was something that you talked about?
There are many kinds of people from the world.
Okay, so it's many types of people from around the world, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And it might be very big.
Might be very big?
Yeah.
Okay, great. How about, is it Ian? Anything else you want to add?
There are a lot of clubs and activities we can do there.
A lot of clubs? Okay, no, that's very true. Okay, how about let's pass it to Peggy and Kathy. What did you talk about?
I think it's interesting because there are a lot of events in their schools.
Lots of events in the schools? Okay, that's true. Yes.
I think it costs a lot of money to study abroad.
Okay, that is very, very true. That becomes actually a big challenge for a lot of families. It doesn't matter if you're from Taiwan or from America, how to pay for university is very important. I think in Taiwan it is more affordable, but in the US, it's as soon as your child is born, you have to start saving money, right? That's very true. Does anyone else want to share something? Anyone else? Any of these groups? Okay, that's okay. You can speak up whenever you'd like. So let me just say a few things about US colleges and universities. So first of all, I think as you said, US colleges are very diverse. There are over 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States. And typically, there's kind of three types of kind of colleges and universities. The first type is called the community college. You may have heard of this. It's a community college is a college that's usually right in your neighborhood. And you will go there for the first 2 years of college. Because usually the college is 4 years, right? The first 2 years, you have many general education requirements. You might have to take English, composition, some mathematics, maybe some biology, some history. But for those first 2 years, many people go to community colleges. Community colleges sometimes are free, or they are very inexpensive. And usually the people who go to community colleges, they will live at home. And that's another way to save actually a lot of money. So some people go for 2 years, and then you transfer to a 4-year college or university. Okay? So community college is the first type. The second type is a 4-year college, and this is where you do your undergraduate, right? The 4 years is for a bachelor's degree. There's another type that's just more, you can say it's a university, right? And the difference is a college usually has the first 4 years, but a university has the 4 years plus, right? Maybe medical school or law school. You can do your master's, you can do a PhD, journalism school. So there's many different types of institutions. Some people start with a community college, then they go to a 4-year college, and maybe for a master's or PhD, they go to a university, right? So there's many types of schools. The other thing is that the education system in the United States is very decentralized. That means that it's not like Taiwan where the Ministry of Education, right, sets all the standards or kind of makes up one system. In the US, every state, there are 50 states, every state is independent and has its own system of education. There's something called accreditation, but that just means that the school has the authority to give a degree. So every state kind of controls its own system that way. There's public and private choices. There's public universities and private universities. I think in many countries, there's the main institutions are the public universities, but in the US, you have both. Usually, if you live, let's say I grew up in California, so my home state is California, then I can go to the University of California, right? That's the UC system, like UC Berkeley, UCLA. That's the hardest to get into. The University of California is considered a research university, right? There's a second system in California that's called the California State University system. That's also public, but it focuses on the first 4 years of college. So in the California State University, the professors are there to teach undergraduates, right? Because at every school, the professors have to do research and they have to teach as well. But at the research university, like the University of California, they teach and they do research. At California State, it's mostly focused on teaching. And then third is the community college. That's just one example from California of the 3 types of public schools that there are in California. But there's also other private universities as well, right? There's many private universities in the US. And so that's something that's distinctive. There are certain kinds of educational values in the US as well. These are things like, you know, in the US, the system is what we can call a general education system. It's not specialized. So like, for example, in the UK, if you go to graduate school, the time is usually shorter, and you already know what you want to specialize in. The US system is one in which it's a little bit broader. Your first few years, you're taking courses in the sciences, in the humanities, in the social sciences, and then maybe by your junior year or sophomore year, you decide what your major is. But it's sometimes called a generalist educational system. Other times you will also hear the term liberal arts. Liberal arts just means a kind of a balance between, again, natural science, humanities, and social science. So in the US, we believe that every person is a kind of needs balance in their education. Everyone needs a little bit of background over a wide variety of fields. So it is not as specialized as in some countries until you get to your junior and senior year, or maybe until you do your master's or your PhD, and then it becomes a little bit more specialized. And in the schools, it's always a balance between kind of the research that the professors do and the teaching that they do. But if you go to school in the US, you may also be able to help the professors do their research as well, which is a great opportunity. I think some of the challenges of US higher education, I think it was it Peggy that mentioned the cost, right? The cost of higher education, that's a huge challenge. Right now in the US, a very large problem is that many students take on student loans. So that's sometimes when they come out of school, the loan is as much as a house, right? And it becomes a big problem for a lot of families. That's why I think it's important to look at options like the community colleges or your state public schools as one way that you can get a good education, but to try to keep the costs down. But that's a big challenge. You know, another challenge right now on campus is that in the United States, there is a lot of debate about race relations. That's just one other example. So, you know, over the past year or two, there have been many protests, right? Sometimes on the city streets, sometimes in campuses, about certain kinds of political issues, or you know, who is an American? You know, or what does it mean to be African American, or Native American, or Asian American? So that's not so much a challenge, but you know, when you're in the university, you're also thinking about all of the issues that are in society, and that's and sometimes that can be a certain kind of dynamic on campus as well. Okay. Let me give you an example, though. I'll tell you a little bit of a story, and this will show that, like, how many different types of universities that there are. So I'll tell you the story of a family. So this is actually the story of my family. My mother and my father were the first ones in their family to go to university. My mother grew up in Taichung, my father grew up in Jiayi. Their families were very poor, and no one in their family went to high school. They went through World War II, but they were both studied hard, right? And so both my mother and my father were the first ones in their family to go to high school. So my mom went to high school in Taichung, my dad went to high school in Jiayi, and then they went to school, Donghai University in Taichung. Donghai was a very small school at the time. I think it was the fifth or sixth year of that university. Okay. My parents studied foreign languages and literature. They studied English, French, and German literature. They had really good professors, and the professors encouraged them to go abroad to study. So my father and my mother went to the US. This was a long time ago, almost 50 years ago. My father did his master's degree at UCLA in English literature, and then he did his, see that bear? That bear is from Berkeley. So he did his PhD at Berkeley. These are both in the University of California schools. So my father studied comparative literature, my mother became a computer programmer, and then my father got his first job as a professor. He was a literature professor at a school called Pomona. This is a small private liberal arts university in Southern California. So that's the town that I grew up with, is in Pomona. Later, when I was in around your age, my father had the opportunity to go to the University of Oxford. So our whole family moved to England for about a year and a half. And then after living in England for a while, I went to a boys' school. So right now you're in a girls' school, right? So my school was a boys' school. We had a uniform. It was very strict. They would hit us. It was like being in a Charles Dickens novel. But I loved it. It was great. So my father then went over to Germany to a school called the University of Heidelberg. This is the oldest university in Germany. And he studied theology. Theology, I think in Chinese is 神学. So he studied like, okay, great. So then I have an older brother, right? My older brother went to school in England and in the US. Then he went to a school called Johns Hopkins University. And then he went to Thomas Jefferson University. This is in Philadelphia. And he became a doctor. My younger brother went to Stanford University in California. And then when he was in school, he did something very fun, which is called Semester at Sea. Semester at Sea is a program run by the University of Pittsburgh. It's a large cruise ship. It's a cruise ship which has professors on it. And the cruise ship goes all over the world. So in one semester or 1 year, you can travel through the whole world. So when he was in college, he did Semester at Sea. So remember that. That's very fun. And he traveled. And the ship was his classroom. The professors taught. And then let's say, oh, today we're going to Egypt. Let's learn about Egypt. And then you would see the pyramids. You would go to Greece. He went to India. He went to Africa. So he did that. That was one of the exchange programs. So this is one of the nice things about US universities. Usually in your sophomore year or junior year, you take one semester and you go to another country. And but he did this. Whoops. He also went to Kyoto University to do another exchange program. He was a student there for 1 semester. He got to work at Toyota, making cars and stuff. He was studying mechanical engineering. Later, he went to the Rhode Island School of Design. That's a school for art and architecture. So my younger brother is an architect. Oops. Okay, and that's me. So I went to Swarthmore College. It's a school in Philadelphia. It only has about 1,000 students. It's a very, very small school. We always had our classes in the houses of our professors, in their living room. Sometimes there was only 2 or 3 people in the class. It was great. It was awesome. I learned a lot. Sometimes, if you learn well in a small school, you can find many, many small colleges in the United States. So I really love that experience. So after I went to college, I went to graduate school. Harvard is in Boston. Boston is a wonderful place to go to school because there are so many universities there. Harvard, MIT, Boston College, Boston University, Tufts, University of Massachusetts. There's like 20 universities in one city. Sometimes people say that Boston is like the Athens of America, like 美国的雅典, right? Because there's so many professors and so many students. It's a really interesting town. Okay? And then, later I met my wife. My wife went to college at the University of Arizona, also a great school. It's the best public school in Arizona. Later, my wife went to California State University in San Jose. This is in Silicon Valley, to do her master's degree, right? And later, she also has, my wife has 2 master's degrees. One is from Commonwealth University in Virginia. Okay, after I finished my PhD, I did my PhD at Stanford. I started to teach. The first school that I taught at was at TCU, Texas Christian University. It's in Dallas, Texas. Also a very wonderful school. I also taught at San Diego State University. Remember how I said in California there's 3 types of universities? San Diego State is in the California State University system. So I taught there for a few years. And then finally I taught at Temple University, which is a school in Philadelphia. So I just want to show you that all because my parents went to college. This is where it started, right? My parents went to high school. My parents went to college, and because of that, all of the opportunities that we had as children came from them. So your education is very, very important, right? I don't know where your school, where you will go to university. You know, maybe you have different dreams of going to university here or there. I just want to encourage you that sometimes because of one choice that you make, because of a good education that you get, you can really change things for everyone in your family. You can really change things for your future and for the future of your community. So I'm just telling you this story as an encouragement. My parents, right? My parents grew up in a family where no one went to school, right? But even in one generation, you can see all the schools that people in my family went to, and it's all thanks to what my parents did, right? So it's very important. When you go back home tonight, say thank you to your mom, thank you to your dad for giving you this opportunity to get this amazing education. And whatever you do in the future, it's not just for you. It's really for everyone in your family. And you can really benefit a lot of people that way. Okay? Okay, let me move to the next topic. Okay. I'm going to give you 1 or 2 minutes to talk about this as well. What is your number one tip for what high schoolers, sorry, I'm blocking you, for what high schoolers can do to prepare for university? So again, talk among yourselves. Try to think of something that you can do right now that will help you in your university.
Oh. My pants are wet, sorry.
Let me join your group.
I think it's study hard and play hard, and doing playing find your interest.
Okay?
Yeah.
Study hard, play hard, and if you're doing something fun, try to find your interest in it.
Yes.
Okay. Pass it to anyone you like.
I think you have to try to communicate with others and teamwork with others.
Communication and teamwork.
Yeah.
Okay. You can choose someone to hear your answer. Choose your best friend.
Shara, I think we need to find what we want to do. What we want to do. We want to do. Yes.
I heard that university in America and Europe, they think critical thinking and like doing your own project is very important. So I think we can develop that skills when we're in high school.
Critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
So looking at evidence, coming to a conclusion, things
Yeah.
like that. Great. Go ahead and pass it on.
I think we have to learn to live our own self. Just to live our own self. Live. Like live without your parents.
Okay. So live for yourself.
Yes.
Great.
I think it's important to be independent, and you need to know what you really want to do instead of like study everything your parents made you to study, and you need to practice the language. Yeah.
Okay, practice language, know what you want to do. Yeah. Just what's it, because I think this is, everything that you're saying is useful for the whole group to hear. So, yeah. Olga, go ahead.
I think it's the same as she said. Yeah, play hard and study hard and find what you like and like make yourself better at it.
Make yourself what?
Better at what you like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get better at something that you like. Great.
Oh, I think the most important is find your interest, and I haven't find my direction yet.
Okay, so you're still looking.
Yes.
You know it's important to find your interest and direction. Great. Anyone else who has a question? Let's just hear from everyone.
Yes. And learn everything we are interested in to find out our ambition.
Okay. Learn what you. Yeah. Great.
I think you must have good learning habit to study in college.
What's one example of a good learning habit? What is a good learning habit that you practice?
那怎么念 discipline discipline.
Self-discipline?
Mm.
Okay. So maybe you know when it's time to work, you're not work.
Yes.
Okay, great. Pass it along.
I think we should study hard and do our homework every day.
Do your homework every day?
Yeah.
Okay, stay hard, do your assignments, great. Okay, thank you.
I think you can join some courses that university offers.
Okay, so take more advanced courses if you have the opportunity.
Yes.
Is that possible in Taiwan?
Yes, we have chosen the classes.
Yes. What class? What's an example? Like math or?
I chose a class about dentist.
Dance?
Dentist.
Oh, dentist. Oh, I see. Okay. So it's like classes that prepare you for a healthcare profession in the future.
Yes.
Okay, great. I think we have to hear from Ian and Elaine.
I think the most important is to find what I really want to do and find what person I am. Yeah.
Okay. Find what you want to do and find what kind of person you are.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think that if you have found the interest, if you had found the interested things that you want to do, then you can preview. You can take a look at the course.
Okay, if you know what your interest, then you know what to do in the course?
Yes, and
Okay.
you can take a look at the course that you want to do in the future.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
That's actually very smart because some students just accept whatever the teacher gives them. But if you look at what the plan for the course is beforehand, you can identify things maybe that you're very interested in, and you could even do more in those areas. Okay, thank you. Those are all very, very smart answers and good tips. So I think what I'm going to say, many of you have already covered, but let me give you a few thoughts, right, that I think may be helpful to you. Okay, I think some of you talked about this too. To me, one tip that I appreciated is getting good at something you love, right? Now this can be, sometimes it's an instrument, a musical instrument, it can be like a sport, it can be any hobby that you have. But if you find something that you really enjoy doing, right, keep doing it, even in high school. Because for colleges and universities in the US, it's very good for you to show that you actually have expertise in something, right? You don't have to be like Olympic level, but you have to show that you have put in a lot of time into it, right? There's a pretty famous book in the United States that talks about how many hours, like this is a question, how many hours do you think it would take to, let's say, to play the guitar or to learn how to paint, right? To get to a very, very high level, how many hours do you think it takes? 100? 10,000. Oh, okay, so you know that statistic already, 10,000. 10,000 hours is a lot, right? That's like 5 or 10 years, right, of practicing every day, right? So, but I think one thing that is encouraging is that, you know, this idea of 10,000 hours, the assumption behind it is that anyone can learn anything, right? Sometimes people will say, oh yeah, this person is a genius, or they were born to be an artist, okay, but I don't think that's true. I think if you love something enough and you put in time and you practice every day, even when it's difficult, whatever you choose to do, you can become very, very excellent at it, right? And so this is a book, a famous book in the United States by an author named Malcolm Gladwell, and he said that it's not that we are born with a special talent for this or that, but if you love something and if you're interested and you practice, you keep practicing it for 10,000 hours, something like that, years, you can get to a very, very high level, even to an internationally recognizable level. So I encourage you to think about something that you like to do. You know, for my kids, so one of them really enjoys soccer. She practices even by herself, like with an app in the backyard. One of them likes crochet. Do you know what crochet is? It's like knitting. You make sweaters and socks and things like that. One of my daughters really likes to draw. But whatever it is, try to keep practicing it. One plays the saxophone, one plays the oboe, they play the piano. So that's something that will really help you, not just the courses that you're taking in school, but if you show the university that there's something that you're committed to getting excellent at something that's important to you, that will help you a lot. The second thing I would say is cultivate, so I use some big words, but a consistent area of humanitarian concern. Okay, that sounds. What is humanitarian concern? Humanitarian concern. Does anyone know what does that mean? Humanitarian concern. Do you want to guess? How about Claire? Take a guess.
Something about human.
Human. Okay. So humanitarian means something that benefits human beings, right? So it can be things like, you know, there's a lot of problems in society, right? When I was in college, one of the people that worked in our library, every Friday and Saturday night after the library closed, she would take leftover food from the cafeteria, and she would take 1 or 2 students and drive into Philadelphia and give the food to homeless people. She would gather socks and blankets, hot coffee, water, sometimes medicine. And when I was a student, I would go in with her. Sometimes at midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning, we would drive around. Sometimes kind of dangerous, actually. Not very good neighborhoods, but we would look for homeless people and we would give them or talk to them, right? And to me, that has been something very important for my life. Like, to me, an issue that I care a lot about is homelessness. Homelessness is a big problem in the United States, right? So when I was young, I started to have some contact with people who lived on the streets. Everyone has a different story. Some people because of alcohol or drugs, some people because their marriage ended in divorce and they lost their house. Everyone has a different story. So that's one example from my life of an area of humanitarian concern that I was able to experience when I was in college. So I think in high school, there are many things that you can do as well. You know, think about what is a problem that, you know, people in Taiwan face today. What's an example of a problem? Yeah.
education problems in the like mountain area or something.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of high mountain areas where maybe the students there don't have as wonderful a school as you have here, right? Does your school have projects to work with other students?
Yes, they have a club or something
Yeah.
grouped by the student and trying to help the student there.
Okay, so that's excellent. So that's one area where you can see that there is a need that people have somewhere in you know, it can be in Kaohsiung, it can be right in the mountains, but you know, I would say try to find that area that you would like to help serve the community in, and try to keep doing it all through high school, right? So no, it's okay to try different things out, but if you find something that you are passionate about, right, that's an area of humanitarian concern, try to keep building it, right? Maybe the first year, right now you're the first year of high school, maybe you belong to the club, but maybe when you're a senior, you could be the president of the club, right? So it's important to take on more responsibility and more leadership and try to find one area that's very, very important to you. Some students, right, work on the environmental, right, issues, right? The earth is getting warmer, or you know, climate change. What is something that you can do as a student, right? What is something you can do in your school? And sometimes, if no one is doing anything in your school, you can start a club yourself, right? I'll give you an example. Last year, my older daughter, she saw that many of the younger students in the school, some of them were struggling because they were in an English environment and they needed help in their classwork. So she started a new club. So the club is for high school students to tutor middle school students, right? That's just one example. If it's not there, create something yourself. And I think that's something that you can really do, right? The third thing I would say as a suggestion, I think someone mentioned it too, try to gain some real world experience. So not just in the classroom, but try to find out what people out in different career fields are doing. So just now, you know, I think Peggy, you mentioned like taking classes about being a dentist and things like that. Sometimes schools will have opportunities. Like my older daughter has worked in a doctor's office. She volunteered with a dentist. Some of students at their schools work at the Kaohsiung Fine Arts Museum, but they can volunteer there for a few weeks at a time and get some experience and find out what it's like to be a doctor or to be a dentist or to be working in a museum. When I was in college, I worked with a judge. I was interested in studying law, so I went with a judge for about 2 weeks. So usually in the United States, people do this when they're in college. But if you can start in high school, you will have a greater advantage. If you can, even if you volunteer, you can say, I don't need any money. Just let me watch what you do. In English, the term is called shadowing. You're like the person's shadow. You just follow them around and watch what they do. If you want to look at what a doctor does, what a nurse does, what a dentist does, what a surgeon does, you know, some schools have things for accountants and lawyers. So try to pick a career that you're interested in, and maybe your parents know people, right? If you're interested in being a doctor, maybe you can ask your family doctor, can I, you know, during the next winter break, can I come every day for 1 or 2 hours a day and watch? Maybe I can help with what you do. If you can do that when you're in high school, when you apply to college and you can write that down, you know what a resume is? Resume is like your 履历, right? You can write that down. Make sure you're writing everything down. But anything that you do that shows that you have real experience in a certain career, that will also help you when you apply to college. And it will also help you to decide if this is something you like to do. Sometimes we have certain notions. We have an idea of, oh, it would be nice to be an airline pilot. But it's very romantic because you actually have not actually spent time with a real pilot. So try to do that. Even if you have to volunteer for free, that time is very valuable. Another thing that you can do is called in English informational interview. And that means, so for example, if there's a doctor and you're interested in learning from them, you can say, hey, do you have time to have a cup of tea or maybe a lunch sometime? And you can pay for their lunch. But sometimes they're willing to sit down for half an hour or an hour, and you can prepare some questions. What is your daily work like? What do you do every day? What is the most challenging thing about your job? What do you love the most about your job? What do you not like about your job? What kind of education did you get in order to get where you are today? So think about someone in your life who is very successful at something that you admire. You can always invite them to have tea or coffee and just ask them, how did you get from being a young person to being in this career, right? And that's called an informational interview. It's free, it doesn't cost anything, means that the person has to spend some time with you. And a lot of times you will find that adults are very happy. If you ask them about their career, they're very happy to share with you. And they will even remember you and try to do things that can help you. Okay? I would also say live a balanced life. Right? This is an age where you're getting more and more homework, but it's important to not just to do well in your studies. It's important to sleep a lot, right? Get as much sleep as you can. I know that for my kids who are about your age, nowadays I sleep earlier than my kids because they have so much homework. But really, really take care of your health because you need your health to over the long term for university, for your career. So, at night, put your phone away, force yourself to get some discipline, but also make sure you're eating healthy, make sure you're getting enough exercise if you enjoy sports or walking, but your life has to have all kinds of balance in it. And the last thing I think is to cherish your family and friends, right? Because one day you may not live in Kaohsiung anymore. Maybe you'll not even live in Taiwan. You may live in another country. So these are the last few years that you may have with your brothers and your sisters, with your mom and with your dad, with your friends in high school. So make sure that you really enjoy the people that you're around. When I was 17, I left my home. My parents lived in Germany. I went to school in the United States. I never lived at home again, right? So this is a very precious time. Try to make sure you build good relationships with your family and your friends, okay? Okay, let me give you some tips on applying to U.S. colleges and grad schools. Again, these are very general kinds of tips. Cool. Okay. So first thing, all right, let me just list all of them out. Sorry. Okay. So first thing is, I think when you're looking for a school, you have to look for what I mean by academic fit is if you want to study like biology or neuroscience or something like that, you have to make sure that you look at what the training is like at that school. But also make sure that if every field that you study, there are also other fields that also contribute to it. Make sure that the school is strong, not just in what you think you want to do, but in other areas that you might be interested. Maybe you have an idea for your major and a minor, but look at all of it. Look at what the requirements for the degree are. Even if you're studying biology, at different colleges and universities, the courses you take will be a little bit different. Make sure that you look at it. And also, in the US, for example, over 50% of students change their major, right? So if you think you're going into something, by the time you finish university, you may actually be studying something else. So make sure that the school has enough programs that you're interested in, that even if you change your mind, there are many other things that you can study. The second thing is, I think the school is not just about the professors, right? It's not just about the teachers, but look at the other parts of how the school supports the students. So for example, what kind of advising? Oftentimes, if you are pre-med, for example, you're in the medical field, some of the schools have a medical advising program. It's like an organization that's just for students, and there's a professor that's assigned to you. Look at the school in terms of also what kinds of clubs and activities, right? Does the school have a good student health system? Does it have, does it have good organization? So think about all the areas of your life, not just the school, not just the academics. Think about how the school will support you. Some schools have an advisor just for international students, right? And that becomes very important because they can really help you when you're starting out there. Third, I think, is think about the financial situation of your family. I think as kids, sometimes maybe as your parents don't tell you that much, right, about, like your dad doesn't say, oh, this is my salary or this is how much savings we have. But I think it's important when you're in high school to start to talk honestly with your parents about what your family's financial situation is. How much can they afford to support you? How much would you have to do through student loans or things like that? But I think it's very important to understand your situation. Is it better for you to go in college, or is it better for you to go later when you're in graduate school? What is it that your family can do? And don't just look at the U.S., but look at other countries as well, because the situation may be different. You may have some relatives in different countries that can help you as well, but start talking to your family about this area as well. And the fourth thing I would say is, like this, the geographical setting, like where the school can be very important. In Taiwan, for example, Taipei is very different from Kaohsiung, Taidong, Hualien, Jiayi. Like every place has a different. Sometimes the weather is different. Sometimes the culture is different. The things that you can do are different. And realize that wherever you go to school for your college or university, all of your classmates will become your most important network. Right? So for example, people that go to UC Berkeley or Stanford, usually they work in Northern California, in Silicon Valley, because all of their professors and all of their classmates are from there. Right? So that's why it's very important. So wherever you go, you should pick a school in a place that you would also be interested in living in later, because that may be where you get your first job too. And that's where your professional network will be. So think about some place where the climate, the weather, the culture, right? All of those things are somewhere you would want to spend some time, because even after college, that may be where your first job is. Okay, I feel like I've been talking for a long time. Why don't we take like a 1-minute break? Feel free to get up and stretch around, and then we'll move into the next part of our talk. Okay, 我想比我想 What's that? 谢谢，谢谢。好了，I'm to put away the notes. Okay, thank you for your attention and your patience. Let's start again. I'm going to go a little bit faster. Is that okay? I'm going to go a little bit faster. I put away my iPad. I'm just going to talk. And if I'm going too fast, let me know. But I have a few more things to share with you. Okay, so we talked a little bit about like AIT. We talked about college in the United States. Now I want to talk about something that's a little bit more general. Some skills I think will help you in your future, no matter what you do. Okay, so let me ask you. Okay, again, I'm sorry. Turn to your neighbors. Think about one skill that you will need to succeed in tomorrow's world, in the future. What is one skill that you need? Again, I'll give you 1 minute. Just discuss it with the people around you. Join your group. Continue to learn, okay. Okay, continuous learning. And you said goals? Not being afraid of failing. Okay, how about for you?
I think is, like her is continue learning
It's okay, it's okay. No, keep going. You use whatever words you have.
I think you need to follow news.
Okay.
Follow global news and not only area where you live. You need to know all the world where what happened all the world is.
Okay, good, very good. Thank you. All right, let's hear from some of your ideas. What is a skill that you need? I heard some good ideas. That's from Claire and Nana. No, you're sitting in different places. My chart. What's your names again? Okay. Cheryl. Okay, and Cindy. And then also with, I'm sorry, Claire. Okay, I'm sorry. It's slightly different. Okay, what is a skill that you think you will need in the future? Anyone? Just raise your hand or say, or just shout it out. Yeah. Communication. Okay, let's go fast. Yep. Negotiation. Right. Learning by yourself. Relationships. Okay, establishing relationships with others. Okay. Solving problems. Okay. Anyone else? Yeah. What? Curiosity. All right. How about in the back there? I'm sorry. I just can't. No. It's with. Say it again. Okay, having your own opinion. I'm sorry, it's with the masks. It's hard to see. So if anything I'm saying is not clear, let me know as well. Okay, so we heard some really great ideas. Many of them are similar to what I'm going to share with you now too. Okay. Where's the computer? Okay. So future-oriented skills. There's many that we can think about, but I just picked a few to share with you. Okay. All right. 谢谢 Emily. Okay, so the first one was cultivating what we can call a growth mindset. This is actually a kind of an educational theory. I know because my wife is a teacher, so she talks about this a lot. But what is a growth mindset? So a growth mindset, basically, a growth mindset is contrasted with a fixed mindset. In a growth mindset, which is where the smiley face is, it says, I believe my intelligence and most things about me can be grown. My true potential is unknown. This is like when we talked about the 10,000 hours, right? That none of us are really limited, right? It's not that there are some geniuses and everyone else, but everyone actually has an unlimited potential. And we always have to have this idea that we can continue to grow, right? That not just when you're a student, but even when you come out and you're working in society, as one of you said, right? You have to continue to learn, all right? And the opposite is a fixed mindset. Some people say, oh yeah, you guys in this school, everyone was selected because you are very intelligent, right? But it's also important to realize that everyone in society, every single person has capacity to grow. It's not just that some people have it, some people don't. Everyone has it. So this is, I think the first thing to realize is that always believe that you are a living thing. You will continue to grow throughout your life, but you have to do things that help you to keep growing. Okay, so let me, okay. So the second thing, I think this group here also, you talked about, right, learning, continuing to learn, but knowing how to learn on your own. I think that for your generation, especially with things like YouTube and all the tools that are on the internet, it's more possible now to educate yourself than it has been in the past. Okay. Now let me just give you some examples, because I think that all of you probably in your class, you are taking notes, right? Every day you're taking notes. And I'll give you one example from different ways of note-taking that maybe can help you to really take charge of your own learning and to even create your own knowledge, right? Because when I was a professor, I remember one of the best students that I had. One day, I was teaching a class with over 300 people. And there was one young woman who was always sat in the front. She was always like taking notes. And one time she came up to me in my office, and she said, "Will you look at my notes? And then you look at how I'm taking notes. Is this enough?" She was a freshman at the time. And her notes were incredible. They were like diagrams and charts and pictures. And I was very impressed because she wasn't just copying down words. She was representing the knowledge in a visual way. Right? That student later became my research assistant, and now she works at Google. She was very, very smart. But I'll give you just some examples, right? Okay, so for example, you may have heard of the term mind mapping, right? So this is just a way of representing knowledge. So if you finish a chapter in a book, or if your teacher finishes that day's lecture, right? Or anytime you finish a unit, one thing you can do is put all the books down. Draw what you learned. What are the main ideas, right? So some students, what they do is at the end of the semester when they're preparing for a test, you take out a blank piece of paper, write down one main idea, connect it, right? And soon you will be able to chart for yourself how all of the main ideas fit together with each other. That's just one example of creating your own knowledge. Don't just rely on what's in the book. Don't just rely on your teachers. You have to create it for yourself, and it will become yours, right? This is a second example. I don't know if you ever heard of this method. It's called the Cornell note-taking method. Does anyone use this method? Kind of, right? Okay, so you already know that the basic idea is that there's like two levels of notes. One is like the notes itself, but the second is, you can call it the meta notes. Meta means on top of. So you may take your, let me see, I have a pointer here. You may take your notes here, but then, for example, at the bottom, do your own summary, like right after class, write a summary of what you learned. And then here, these are things like anticipated questions, main ideas, vocabulary words used for review or study. This is just one example, but it's a way that you always have to stay very active when you're taking notes. Don't just write down what the teacher is saying. Right? Organize it for yourself. There are many, many different ways of organizing. This is just one example. Usually when I'm studying a language, this is a method that I use. The teacher tells me things, but I'm always writing my own questions, important words, ideas, and then maybe a summary below. So there's always what's going on in the class, but what's going on in your mind, what you are doing as well, to keep things organized, right? Another way is also to use like pictures, right? So here it says, emphasize the most, ooh, it's a touch screen. The most important things, size, shape, color, highlighting, 3D, right? Shorter is sweeter. Pictures speak 1,000 words. Look at categories. When I was studying in the UK, our teachers taught us a way of note-taking where the most important topic, we had to underline it twice, and then subtopics, we underline it once. Right? Other times, people will put like a square around a main topic and then a circle around a subtopic. There's all different ways of doing it, but try to be creative and experiment with your own ways. Again, constructing and creating your own knowledge. So now I'm going to show you some examples. I looked at my daughter's notes a few days ago. I asked her if I could borrow her notebook. She's about your age. So what do you notice about this? It's sort of soft rock. This is like music, right? But she uses a picture to talk about like the roots of something and then later influences. This is just one idea. But sometimes pictures can really help you to remember things, right? These are, I don't know if you can see this clearly, but these are notes that she made for her biology class. And each of these is actually, you can flip it up and there's things underneath it. It's very fancy. But using different colors, for example, using pictures, these are like organization levels of biology: cell, tissues, organs, organism, organ system, population, community, ecosystem, biome, biosphere. And if you flip up each one of them, there's something written in it as well. So sometimes you can use like other ways of just helping yourself to organize your ideas. This is also from some biology class that she took. So diagrams, sometimes drawing things out, but also kind of making your own categories and making it clearer. There's another example, sometimes using patterns and colors can help. Again, these, if you flip them, you can see some different things going on underneath. And these are like different progressions, but this is just different ideas for you. This is like a skeleton that you can flip out and all different things. There's different ways of categorizing things. I think for her math class, every formula she used like a sticky note, and she could remember it. But I think the main point of this is, when you are learning, make sure that you make the learning your own, right? And again, this is just a small example from the ways that you can take notes to remain very active and curious and creative, no matter what you're learning. So the other skill I want to talk about is setting priorities, right? We talked about growth mindset, educating yourself. Setting priorities is very important. Let me show you a picture. Oh, okay. Let me ask you a question. We can just discuss this. How many of you have your to-do list that you keep every day? Does someone have a to-do list with them right now? Can I see it? Okay. Can you explain, wait, this is Gloria, right? Can you explain what your to-do list is to everyone?
This is the subject and the topic and page I need to write. And this is not the school stuff, it's my own class.
Okay.
And this is the upper is the school stuff.
Okay.
And after every day I came to home, I will write down what did I do these days and calculate how many hours I studied and maybe take some notes.
Oh, so you count the hours you study as well?
Yes.
Okay. And that's on a calendar, right? By calendar day. Great. Anyone else have their to-do list, a system? Okay. Anyway, I think Gloria's system is pretty good, but everyone has their own way of trying to keep track of what you have to do, right? So let me show you a picture, right? This is from a pretty famous book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Maybe you know it. But in these two pictures, right, there's actually the same amount of rocks and the same amount of sand in each picture, right? The one on the left, you can see the rocks are sticking out. Not all of them fit. The one on the right, all of the rocks are inside, right? Okay. So the question is, like, How did the one on the right, how did they fit all that in? Oh, yes.
They put the big rock in.
Yeah. So this is kind of an idea that you can think about. The big rocks are like the most important priorities in your life. Like what is the example of a big rock in your life? Anyone have an example? What's an example? Nana, right? Your name is Nana? Yeah. What's a big rock in your life? What's something that's really an important priority for you?
To eat and maintain your
Okay. Health, right? So for you, and it should be for everyone, health is something that's a big rock, right? So maybe something, if you put it first, that means maybe on your calendar, you should schedule like 2 or 3 days a week where you exercise, right? You put that in first, right? What is another like big rock in your life? Health is one. What's another one? Anyone? Yes. Your family, all right? What is a way that you can make your family a priority in your weekly schedule? Okay, so talk to them, share your things. Sometimes, as a parent, I will ask each of my kids, let's say, maybe Saturday we can do something together. Let's go for a bike ride together. Or to my other daughter, I'll say, hey, tomorrow I'll take you to 7-Eleven. You can buy whatever you want for dinner, right? But you make that something that you have to do. Health, your family, your studies, right? Maybe you have a hobby, something that you're learning. Maybe when we talked about humanitarian concern, that's an area as well. Everyone has maybe 3 or 5 or 7 areas in your life that are very important. Sometimes people also do it by the role that they play. For example, all of you are children, right? Maybe you're a sister as well. You are a friend. Maybe you are a leader at school. So sometimes people will look at all of the roles that they play in their life. Maybe you go to church or something like that. Maybe you have a role there. Look at all of your roles, and every week make sure that you're doing something that really fits in that role. So the idea is if you put the big rocks in first, all the little things, the sand is like the little things in your life, right? If you do all the little things first, the big things won't have room. That's like why a lot of people don't have time to exercise, because they do everything else, right? But if you put those things first, the little things will fit in, right, around the cracks. So that's one idea to think about. All right, so it looks complicated, but it's actually very simple, right? Along with this idea, this is from the 7 Habits book, there's this idea that, when you make a to-do list, some things are more important than others, right? It's not just that everything is important. Everything is the same. So what is one way you can think about how to prioritize your time? So the author of this book talks about four different ways. So it's almost like you take a piece of paper, right? And you fold it in 4 ways. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? There's 4 quadrants of that time. So every one of those has some combination of importance and urgency, right? Urgency. Important means like, is this a big rock or is it not? Urgent means, does it have to be done now or can it be done later? Right? So there's 4 different categories. One is like things that are important and urgent. These are probably the things that you should do first. It's like you have a big test tomorrow, right? Or tomorrow is like your college application is due. But what's interesting is that there's these other categories. This number 3 is very important, is interesting. It's urgent, but it's not important. Right? There are many things in our life that are like, someone needs something for you today or tomorrow, but it's actually not that important. But we tend to spend a lot of time in this area, doing things that are urgent but not important. This is the worst. These are things that are not urgent and not important. But we actually do a lot of those things too, especially when you're trying to procrastinate. You know what procrastinate means, right? It means like putting off something that you should be doing. And this, quadrant 2, is the most important. It's important, but it's not urgent. These are like things that are good for you in the long term, like maybe like exercising or like spending time with a friend or spending time with someone elderly in your family. Oftentimes, we should spend the most time on this one. Number 2, the second quadrant is actually the most important. So one way to think about your life is like, think about all the things you have to do every week and then assign them to one of these quadrants and try to do these first. Because this one, no one's going to kill you if you don't do this, right? But this is the most important. People tend to focus on these the most. And these, you should just try to get rid of them entirely. So when you are developing your priorities, try to have more of this, more of number 2. Important but not urgent. These are things that will develop you for the long term, right? And those are things that maybe only you can control how much of that you do. But that's very important. Try to do more of number 2 and less of number 2 and number 1, if you can. Number 3, sometimes you have to, but this should come first, and then this, and then this, and then this, right? Okay. So another thing to share with you, so you may have heard of like the 80-20 principle. This is actually it's not actually scientific, but it's just a general idea about, about life, about relationships, and even about our productivity. So what is this 80-20? What does that mean? It means that, people have found that, for example, if you're a salesperson, or if you work in a big corporation, or if you are a scholar, a lot of times, like 80% of the time that we spend, right, only gives us a little bit of results, right? But actually, sometimes it's like there's 20% which actually gives 80% of the results. If you think about like people that you know, so if you're in a business, right, sometimes it's like there's like 100 clients, right, but some of them are extremely productive, right? Just like the people that are in your circle, only a few of them actually do a lot of things, and most people are actually not that active. And I think that if you think about the different projects that you're doing, and the things that you're working on, try to think about like that 20% of the things that you're doing that really have a very, very large impact on your life and on your success. Or think about your friends, right? Out of 5 friends, there is one, right, who is like very, very healthy and productive and helps you to grow into a better person, right? Spend more time on that 20% because it's the 20% that gives you most of your results. And try not to spend time on this part, right? 80% that only gives 20%. Again, this is not a scientific thing, but it's more like a principle. There's a minority of people and of projects and of things that we can do that actually give us the most results. So try to focus as much on that 20%. This 20% is a little bit like the quadrant 2. It's like that kind of thing, right? So if you're interested in these ideas, there's a few books. I think their books are about 20 years old or so, but the author's name is Stephen Covey. And the books are called like The 7 Habits of this or of that. I'm sure they're translated in Chinese as well. There's one that's for teenagers, which is actually very interesting as well. There's one for families that you might be interested in as well. Another book that a lot of people, especially in the tech circles in the United States, have read is called Getting Things Done. This is also a book that's probably been around for 10 or 15 years, but a lot of people have used some of their ideas. Some of the ideas that are in this book, I'll just give you a few examples that I wrote on the right-hand side. Ubiquitous capture. So ubiquitous means everywhere, right? So one of the suggestions is you should carry around, usually now it's our phone, right? A phone or something a notebook, something you can write with, because a lot of times we get ideas or we think of things that we have to do at different times. Sometimes it's in the shower, sometimes you're like in the subway, But whenever you think about something, one of the ideas is to write it down right away. Capture it in one place. And because you've written it down, then your mind can stop processing it, and it frees up your mind to do other things. A second idea that is a part of this book is called the weekly review. That is, you should set aside a time, probably like every weekend before the week begins, to look over all the things that you have to do in the coming week, right? And maybe make some priorities. You know, some people do something very simple, like every day I'll pick 3 things, 3 important things I want to accomplish, and I'll do them, 3 things. Sometimes people will talk about, okay, these are the different roles that I have in my life. What is it that I can do in each area of my life to make sure that my week is successful? And then another idea is this idea of a project versus a next action. So to this author, David Allen, anything that involves more than one step, let's say something like, I want to apply for a job, right? In this system, that's a project because it has many steps in it. So you should separate out things that are projects in your life. You may have many examples. Applying for a job, you might be completing a certain research paper at school, trying out for a team or something like that. That's a project. But then every project should be broken into the next action. The next action is like something that you can do within 2 minutes, right? So if I want to apply for a job, that's a project. What is the next physical action that I can take? Maybe it's creating a folder, right, where I can keep my things, or creating a list on the computer. So just every project, there should always be a next action, something that you can do physically in the next 2 minutes to move forward. And every project is made up of many, many next actions, but always make sure that you're doing something to make that project happen. Okay, so we talked about growth mindset, educating yourself, setting priorities. Financial literacy, I think, is also very important for your future, right? Financial literacy means that we all know how to read. You all know how to read in English, you all know how to read in Chinese, but it's also important, especially when you're in high school and before you get to college, to know something about how the financial world works, right? So this is very simple, but when my kids were very young, every time we gave them money, we would ask them to put it into 3 different categories. There are 3 different boxes. And we lived in many countries, so the money is always different, but usually it's coins that we would give them. But let's say you have, like $10, right? Of every sum of money that comes in, you should always also start to have this mentality of, right? First of all, like save a part of everything that you have. Maybe it's 10%, 20%, sometimes 50%, it depends. But if I give my kids $10, I always ask them to save at least $1 or $2. My younger daughter is very good, she saves a lot more. My older daughter, she spends it. But once you save something, this saving also includes investing. When you get older, right? Your parents probably buy things like stocks, mutual funds. Mutual funds is like a 共同基金, right? Start to ask your parents or look online about these kinds of things because investing is also part of saving. And then once you saved something, you should also set aside something to give, right? Maybe it's like a charity. Maybe it's within your religion, right? Maybe it's some organization that's important. If you care about the environment, save some of that money so that you can do something with it. And then everything else you can spend. That's fine. Some of the money you should use, right, to buy clothes or go out to eat or watch a movie, do things that you like. But always save something first. And then also reserve a part for giving as well. I think as you move through your life, if you always know how to save, how to give, and then what you can spend, I think you will be successful. Because a lot of Americans, when they're young, they don't learn these kinds of things. They go to college, they use their credit cards, they get a lot of student loans, and they're in a lot of trouble later on. So these are very fundamental. I think people in Taiwan are pretty good about this, but ask your parents or your teachers, but just try to get smart on some of these things as well. This is a book that's, this is actually a very old book. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon, but it's written almost like a fable. You know what like a fable, Aesop's fables? A fable is like a very old story. And it's, I think for teenagers or even for younger children, it gives some of these basic concepts in a way that you can understand. Okay. All right. The last thing I want to talk about is develop positive lifelong habits, right? We talked about like to-do lists and priorities and goals and things like that. But recently in the United States, people have also been very interested in habits, right? Because it's not just like a list on a piece of paper. It's also who you are. If you can develop yourself into someone who is productive and is energetic, if you can develop good habits, that does a lot to help you to be successful in the future. So let me ask you a question. What is a good habit that you would like to have, but that you don't have yet? What is a good habit you would like to have? Yes. What? I want to go with. Sorry. Gloria and then Doreen. Okay. Yeah.
To exercise.
You would like to develop a habit of exercising? Okay. Great. Thank you. That's a good one. And then Gloria.
I think it's sleeping, the good sleeping habit, because I think I'm sleeping too late.
Sleeping. All right. Exercise, sleep. Let's get one more. What is one more good habit you would like to make? Anyone? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Olga, why don't you go ahead?
Finish the important task first.
Okay. Finish important tasks first instead of doing other things before that. Okay, very good. Now, sometimes there are good habits we would like to have. There are also bad habits we would like to break, right? Who has a bad habit that they're willing to share, that they would like to not do anymore? Does anyone have an example of a bad habit? Yes, Elaine.
I always skip breakfast, and I hope that I will get rid of this bad habit.
Okay, so you skip breakfast, but you would like to start making time to eat breakfast. All right, let's get two more. What's another bad habit that you wish you could break?
I always spend too much on my cell phone.
On your cell phone? Oh, okay. That's like
on the social media or comics.
That's a universal bad habit. A lot of people wish they had. Okay, great. Thank you. Let's get one more example. Yep, from Nana.
I always put off important things and just to lie on bed and watch TV.
Okay, that sounds very nice. Okay, so yeah, sometimes we know we have to do something, but you take a break first, right? You reward yourself first before you do the hard work. Okay, so these are all examples. These are all very good examples, not just for you as students. I think for us as adults as well. Everyone knows there are good habits they would like to create and bad habits they would like to break. So recently there's been more research, people writing books about habits, especially from the standpoint of brain science, like neuroscience. So I'll give you one example, just from one book that's become very popular in the US. So this is one example, like every habit has a certain kind of cycle, right? There's a cue, which is like something that triggers the habit. It's like you see something and it reminds you of the habit. Maybe you see your bed, right? And it's like, oh, I would like to lie down in it. Or I pass by a cafe. It's like, oh, I would love to buy like my 5th cup of coffee that day or something, right? The cue leads to a craving. We all have certain things that we desire, right? And then there's a response, right? A response, we tend to react in a certain way, we make certain kinds of choices, and then the reward is like what you get from that habit. This can be good or bad. A good or bad habit can go through this cycle. And it happens over and over again, and there's something that's built in our brain that follows like a certain path. Whether it's a good habit or a bad habit, it can go through this kind of process. And so one of the things that this author talks about is like how to build good habits. There's a few things. How to build good habits and break bad habits. Building good habits make it obvious. So like if you want to exercise more, maybe you put your running shoes by your bed, so when you get up, like your shoes and your clothes are right there, or something like that. Make it attractive. Sometimes we can give ourselves a certain kind of reward, right? If I do this, then I get to like go on social media. Like once I exercise, I can go on social media. Make it easy. Just like if you want to eat breakfast in the morning, maybe prepare it the night before so that when you can take it out of the refrigerator and just put it in the microwave. Whatever you can do to make it easier for you. Make it satisfying. Make it fun. Make it something that you will enjoy. In the same way that if you're trying to break a bad habit, one way is to make it invisible. You can hide your phone, for example. Give your phone to your mom, right? Make it unattractive. On my phone, I can control on my kids' phones. Like sometimes the time is up or something like that, or make it hard. Sometimes people will, in my house, like my daughters are trying to eat less cookies, so we always put it in a very high shelf. So if they want to eat cookies, they have to grab a chair, get a chair, climb up, and grab the cookie. And sometimes they'll think, oh, okay, maybe I won't eat it this time, right? That's one small example. Make it unsatisfying. Find some way to make sure that whenever you do the bad habit, there's something that's kind of not so fun about it, right? Okay. This is just an example, but there's a lot of research now about how to build habits and how to break habits. Regardless of the method, try to think for yourself, like, what are some of the habits that are most helpful for me in my life, that are most helpful? What are the habits that will help you to get to your goal, right? Maybe you want to be healthier. Maybe you want to sleep more. You want to eat better. You want to do the important things first. Try to think about ways that you can. It's not just a list, but it's your character, right? You're building your character so that you are the kind of person that will do the thing that's good and will not do the thing that's bad. I'll give you two examples, practical examples from the book. One is when you're building good habits, one technique that this author shows is called habit stacking. What that means is you take something that you already do, like every morning you brush your teeth, right? So for example, you can say, every morning I already brush my teeth, so I will train myself, when I brush my teeth, I will listen to, international news while I'm brushing my teeth, right? That's an example. You want to listen to more news? You take something you already do as a habit and you stack it, you build it on top of it, okay? So that's just one example. Like, or you are, every day you have to ride the subway. Maybe there's something you can do in the subway, right? Something that you can do that's good for you, that attach it to a habit that you have. The other idea is similar. It's called temptation bundling. It means that you take something that you really like to do that's very fun, but you attach it to a good habit that you should do first. So for example, if you like to look at social media on your phone, but you also know that you should exercise, right? Maybe you can say, I can check Instagram when I'm on the 跑步机, right? Like, so put it together, right? So that you're doing something you need to do, but you're getting a reward, right? Or I will lie down on my bed, right, after I do my homework, or something like that. But just make sure that you put the thing that's a temptation onto a good habit. So you use the habits you already have to try to build or to break habits that you may have. Those are just some examples, right? This is the book that I was talking about. You may have heard of it already. It's an interesting title, right? It's called Atomic Habits. Atomic, you know, why do you think the author compares a habit to an atom? Atoms are very small, right? Why do you think he calls it atomic? Yeah. Any ideas? Yeah. Yeah.
Does the author think you need to create a habit from the small things to let it become a big change?
Okay. Yeah. Atoms are like the building blocks of life, right? They're the most fundamental things. And so, according to this author, the habits that we have every day become the building blocks of your life and who you are. So if you can start to develop good and positive habits, you actually are building yourself up as a person. So a lot of big change comes from very small things. Just like a nuclear reactor, right? It comes from very small atoms colliding together that then react to create a lot of energy. Okay? That's just one example. There's a lot of other research that people are doing now. So we talked about like setting priorities, right? But a lot of times, you can also think about habits as well in your life. What are some good habits that you can build to become the kind of person that you want to be? Okay. So today we talked a little bit about like the work of AIT. We talked about like higher education and college. We talked about some future-oriented skills. There's a lot of things that we talked about, but I think what's most important is that I hope that at this stage, as you're starting your high school years, right, really enjoy the next 3 years of your life. I know all of you will work really hard, but this is the time when you really are starting to build yourself, right, into who you want to be. You're learning all the things that will help you to achieve your dreams in the future. You're learning for yourself, but you're also learning for everyone in your family, for everyone in your community, even for Taiwan. Some of you will do things that really will benefit this whole island and this whole community. So I hope that you will really make it your own journey, right? And it's really wonderful to see you at the beginning of what I think will be a very, very, very good and fruitful path. So I wanted to leave some time for any questions or any comments that you would like to make. It's open right now. And it can be on any topic. Anything that we've talked about or anything that you are curious about. Yep. Yes.
Well, I'm curious about if you are making a habit, like practicing it, and if you failed, sometimes what would you think? Like, would you punish yourself or something like that? Yeah, that is it.
Yeah.
I want to ask if you are creating a habit and if you failed, what would you act? Yeah,
what would you do if you failed? Yeah. So I think, this is just my personal answer, but I think it's important to always be very hopeful about your life and your future, right? I'll give you an example. Sometimes when I was teaching, some days I would teach and the class would be terrible, like very, very boring. All the students are falling asleep, right? And I would think to myself, oh, I must be like the worst teacher in the world, right? Other days, like the class was very good, and I would feel like very proud, like too proud, like, oh, I'm like the best in the world. So I think it's important to not go to either extreme. Just because there is one thing that you failed in, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person, right? It doesn't mean that your life is not worthwhile. So I think if you try every day, right? If you're trying to develop a good habit, if you do something every day, right? I'll give you one example. So I like to exercise,
I try to exercise at lunchtime every day, right? At AIT, we have a little exercise room, and sometimes, you know, it's all of us are very, very busy, right? Sometimes I only have time to exercise for like 10 minutes, right? In fact, I have an app on my phone. It's called the 7-minute workout. Some days I only have 7 minutes. But, you know, my philosophy is like, something is always better than nothing, right? So that even if that day, I just like today because we were very busy, I exercise for 7 minutes. I even change and everything. But to me, that's okay, as long as I did something, right? So try to, and this is like the growth mindset, like try to always be very hopeful about yourself and your ability to grow, right? Do something every day, even if it's very, very small. That's like why this book is called Atomic Habits, like even if it's small, right? Doing something is always better than doing nothing, right? And even if you fail, you still try to do something. After you fail, you can still do something that's good, right? So I think that's important to never like give up hope in yourself. And then the other thing that can help too, this is not in what I said, but when you're trying to like build good habits, try to rely on the people around you as well. You know, sometimes it's a good teacher, sometimes it's like your friends in your class. You know, if you have a goal, try to find a partner to help do that goal. Like in our office, some of us are trying to exercise more or to like lose weight and do different things. That it's like if you find someone else that you can do it with. I've done different diet programs with colleagues, and it's always better if you're not alone, right? So that's another thing you can do. Always try to find people that are very encouraging to you. And if someone is it has a negative effect on your life, try to create some distance. I think that's important because we are so affected by the people around us. Try to go more towards people that will help you to really be healthy in all areas of your life. Good question, thanks. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Yes, let's go with is it Ian first.
Yeah. Do you and your daughters feel hard to fit in a new culture when you travel around the world?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Every country is different. The situation. There are some places like in Europe, right? As soon as we go out, people know we are not from there. They know that we're foreigners. And in the beginning of COVID, it was actually very difficult to be Asian American in Eastern Europe, because people they don't care if you're from Japan or Korea or Taiwan or the U.S. or China. They look at you and all they think is like, oh, you're from China. You're like, you must be sick with COVID or something like that. There's a lot of racism, but at the same time, that country is also very, very friendly. Like sometimes it's both at the same time. You can have the racism, but you can also have a lot of warmth. So I also made some very, very good friends there, right? I think for the kids, they usually go to the local international school or American school. So their classmates are usually from all different kinds of countries. But I think maybe you'll experience this later. If you go to other countries, every country that you're in, your identity is a little bit different. Just like for you, every stage of life, everywhere you go, you're a little bit, it's not quite the same. So for us in Taiwan, on the one hand, it's very comfortable, right? Because my parents grew up here. I never lived here when I was a kid, but I feel very at home. I speak Chinese, I speak Taiwanese, but sometimes even if you look the same, you still feel very different, right? Just like for all of you, everyone has a very different experience, even though you're going through the same school. So, I think what's most important is that that we learn that the world is bigger than us. Right? The world is bigger than Kaohsiung or Taiwan or America. It's like keep exploring and accept that there are many different ways of living and there are many different types of people. So I hope that if my kids can learn that it will help them in the future. But mostly it's been they have gotten a lot out of it and they've enjoyed it. But I think the older you get, the harder it is to leave your friends behind. That's probably the hardest thing. So I think we had some other questions. Doreen? Okay.
Do you have any advice for us to study abroad?
For studying abroad?
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the things that I shared in the talk, I think the best advice is, in the things that you study, right? The things that you study and the things that are your hobbies, right? Think about your life as your academics, maybe your hobbies, but also your service, what you can do for the community. Like, try to do something in each of those areas, and put that into the way that you're learning English, right? I think when you go and study abroad, you will have an advantage because of how early you started to study English. But it's not just language, you also need content. The content comes from inside of you, right? So my experience is, if I'm studying a foreign language, the best way to use it is to try to share something that's really important to you. So I've even had experiences when I get so excited about something, right? You even forget that you're speaking in a foreign language, right? It's not the language. The language is a tool. It's what is inside of you that you are excited to share, right? So that when you apply to colleges and universities, or when you apply to graduate school, if you can communicate that's the best thing, right? Don't just learn language for the sake of learning language, but learn it because it's a way for you to share what's important to you with the world, right? And to learn about the world. So, yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I want to ask, I find it much harder to start a thing than continue doing it, because I always can't do something and I always put off. So how can I push myself to start doing something?
Okay. One thing that people sometimes say is, have you ever heard of this? It's like a joke, but it's like, how do you eat an elephant? Have you heard that question before? How do you eat an elephant? Okay, and the answer is one bite at a time. Okay, so what I would encourage you to do is, sometimes the projects or the goals that you have seem to be very, very large, right? But try to think of a small thing that you can do that helps you every day towards that. Sometimes it's as simple as I'm gonna organize my school bag so that or it's like you talked about wanting to exercise. It's like do something in your environment that makes it easier to do the things that you want to do, and break it into small pieces. Even like with exercise, even if sometimes people say exercise for 1 minute, 1 minute a day, and then maybe the next day you can do 2 minutes, and then 3 minutes. But just start with something very small and that's very easy to do, because once you have a small success, it's like a feedback loop in your mind. It will be encouraging as well. So if something seems too large, break it down into a very small piece and just do something. And I think you'll feel that you're making a little bit of progress every day. But I think that's a challenge that it's just not only you have it. I think most people at some stage in their life feel that. It's always harder to do the things that is important that we know we should do. It's always easier to do something else, something small and trivial, right? So try to think about that, the quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. What are the things in number 2? And what can you do today to try to touch that goal? Great. Great. Thanks. Yes.
Cindy, is that right? to ask about the difference between like studying abroad for 4 years and become exchange students for 1 year. Yeah, I want to ask what is the difference between studying abroad and become an exchange student?
Yeah. The main difference is when you study abroad for 4 years, you receive the degree from that school, right? And a lot of times receiving an international degree can give you certain opportunities, right? Maybe you can get certain types of jobs, you can be qualified for a certain career path. An exchange year or an exchange semester is more about the experience, right? So in the US, usually people take the junior year, like one semester of the junior year, and go overseas. Like to Americans, overseas is like Taiwan or Europe. And most of the time they will study partially in the foreign language and partially in English. Sometimes people study abroad completely in their own native language as well. So when I was in college, my college had a program in France. And the program was, I think, some of the classes were in English, some of them were in French. So it's about the life experience. It's also about improving your language and giving yourself a try to see if that's a country that you want to go to in the future. So both the exchange semester or year and the full degree have their purpose, but it's for different stages. I think if you're still exploring, an exchange is a wonderful thing to do. You could do it as a summer program. You could do it as one part of your college. And then if you're sure that you want to go into that country and that system, then you can go and do the degree. But the 4-year degree is more expensive. It takes longer. But you also have to make sure that your language skills are up to the university level. Some people go to the States and they will continue to study English for 1 year before they start. That's very common too. When I went to high school in Germany, I studied for 6 months, only German, 10 hours a day. It was very difficult, but you need to have sometimes intense study in the environment to get up to a certain level. So that's the exchange program is good. When I was learning Chinese, I always came to Taiwan. I spent 2 summers and 1 year, at different times. And every time I came, 1 summer in Taiwan is like 2 years studying Chinese in the US. It's so much better, right? So for language, I think putting yourself in that environment can be very helpful. It can really make it go faster. And it's more fun too. Okay, thanks. All right. Any other questions? All right. So the last slide that I have is a feedback. If you like take a picture of that code, you can tell us what things that you found interesting, things that you'd like to learn more about. But it's a way for you to, and it's all anonymous, but for you to give some feedback to us as well. So AIT Kaohsiung has an Instagram site and also a Facebook. If you just Google AIT Kaohsiung, you'll find our Facebook is the main page. The AIT in Taipei also has a Facebook page as well. Sometimes there's information on different programs for students. Sometimes there's programs for high school students as well. In Kaohsiung, I want to tell you about 2 programs that we have that might be interesting to you. One is that every year that we do an English language speech competition. This is at Zhongshan Daxue at Sun Yat-sen University. This year it was canceled because of COVID, but it's open to all high school and university students from around Taiwan. And it's sponsored by AIT and Zhongshan University. The second thing is there's a science competition every year that AIT holds that's called the Ocean Challenge. And we do it with the Ocean Affairs Council, which is it's called the Haiwei Hui in Chinese. But it's about high school and universities can form teams that compete in this with science projects, and you might do a little bit of research, but on issues relating to ocean conservation. So anyway, if you follow our Facebook, or if you follow for Kaohsiung or for Taipei, you always get the latest news about our different programs, sometimes lectures or talks, or different programs for students. Okay. All right. I wanted to thank all of you. Very active and very fun to talk to. We can talk more afterwards too, just individually. But I want to thank you again, and thank you to Principal Lee, and wish you all the best for a very, very good year ahead. And hope everyone stays safe and healthy and learning well. All right, thanks a lot.